Hey, what's going on, everybody? Brandon Charleston here with a really quick tutorial. Hopefully I don't dive too deep, pun intended, on Ocean.io, but I'd like to demonstrate a workflow that I developed for one of my clients to really augment and scale their LinkedIn outreach for hotels with mergers and acquisitions. And so I'd like to just demonstrate what you can do as well, diving in, with all the integrations that are happening with HeyReach and things like that. And so, let's go ahead and dive in. So I am in a clay table, and if you haven't already noticed, they recently launched the workbooks integration or workbooks feature, which is currently in beta, but essentially it's converted the workflows into multiple tables into one workbook. So it's similar to your Google Sheets or Excel, to where you have multiple tables all in one workbook where you can neatly organize all your different tables. It's really helped me a ton, and I continuously do that just to build out multiple tables for different reasons, so it's all interconnected. So with this particular list, basically, in order to contain and shield these people, I'm going to blur out the email addresses. But essentially, I received a very short list from my client of prospects that he wanted me to reach out to. And so I took it and ran with it, obviously, and then I used an integration like Enrichly, where it's giving me the validation. Shout out to Enrichly for doing the okay, along with the catch-all validated. So use that. And then very simply, I did a couple of integrations such as Claygent in order to expand, because a lot of hotels in this space, it's not usually one owner, it's usually multiple owners. So I had Claygent basically scan their site to see if there is a group of investors or owners, and I extract that, and then I convert that to JSON in order to get all the owners, right? And then, not to get too deep into that, but I essentially converted it to JSON format, so that way I can properly format it, append it to another table, which I'll show here in a moment, and then I can enrich their LinkedIn profile and send them on their way, right, to a campaign. And that's what you see right here. And so then from there, I, of course, ran an Ocean.io lookalike because I wanted to expand on this. And the reason that this particular integration really helps out is because with a lot of unknowns, and sometimes in the hospitality world, there's going to be PE groups, there's going to be private groups, there's going to be and I mean by private groups, just maybe a couple investors. Sometimes the owner is at the hotel. There's just a lot of different variables when it comes to finding hotel owners. And so whatever your prospects are, it might be the same. So I ran a lookalike via Ocean.io, which is able to expand out these and then right into another table, right? And with this particular integration, it's just a HTTP API. But essentially, I am sending this, which I commonly talk about on my channel, is sending this through an N8N workflow, which is just a 3-node workflow. Essentially, it's a webhook that is sent to this table, and then it's split out, so it parses the data, because when you receive multiple companies, you have all the schema here, of which the only thing you can do is to add it as a column in the current table, which in some use cases might be appropriate. However, in this case, I want to reroute and parse the data to another table where they populate as separate rows. So I went ahead and did that. And then we just basically go back and forth, Ocean.io team and I, always making puns about, swimming in the ocean and things like that. And so I proclaim this the deep blue ocean of swimming in LinkedIn. It's all good, right? So I went ahead and went to our first table here, right? So this is the prospects that I initially expanded on the first one, which I did on JSON format. And then very simply, I sent him to a HeyReach campaign, which I'll go over here in a second. And then here comes the first wave. So this particular webhook table is that first lookalike where I went from 19 buyers or 19 hotels, right? And in the very first wave, while deduping, I was able to extract 39 more hospitality private equity groups, potential owners of hotels, right? And so very simply, I just processed the data that's already populated here. And then guess what? I ran a lookalike as well, of which you can see all the things here. All of them populated 10 new potential lookalikes, right? And then again, I send it through an N8N split workflow, which is another one in which I am writing yet another webhook table, which I deem the second wave, right? And then from here, same thing, webhook flowing through, and then I went ahead and expanded that 10 more companies. By the way, I exposed another 87 after deduping, right? And then I sent it through a third wave. You can imagine what happens after that, right? Third wave, in which I extracted yet another 152 rows of private equity and hotel buyers and things like that, all these different capital groups that potentially own hotels, right? So I can obviously take this and score it and move it down the workflow, but you can see it's usually, I'd say 15 or less columns, so a very light workflow between the two, or between all the workflows here. But essentially what I'm doing is I flow that through. Now I could continue on with the fourth and fifth wave, but I felt like this was probably a good start for my client to be able to get their LinkedIn outreach going, because the whole purpose here is to start a conversation. And a lot of times these investors, are going to be on LinkedIn, and so we want to connect with them and have them start a conversation in order to see, if they're looking to do any sort of mergers and acquisition transaction for different hotels. So from there, you can see this empty column right here. This is nothing more than me going to find people at these companies in which I'm looking for upper executive, upper echelon, people that are going to be decision makers that can help facilitate the conversation. And I did the same for all the other different waves, where I just did find people within these companies. And then what I did is I added it to this particular table, of which you can see here, I have 5238, so 5,238 rows of people from all these different companies that I've expanded on, that are all CEO, vice president, co-founder, vice president, executive vice president, basically upper echelon of people who, why not? Let's go ahead and connect with them on LinkedIn. We can kind of snake our way, and find the appropriate point of contact in order to start a conversation and ultimately develop a relationship, right? A business relationship, obviously. So you can see the impact here of how multiple platforms and integrations, such as Enrichly, N8N, Ocean.io, and ultimately HeyReach as well, in order to start from a very small list and move this all the way to over 5,200 rows, of which I enrich them and then basically send them off to HeyReach, right? And then you can see here, very simply, I went ahead and started a campaign for them, so it's flowing through, and I am growing their accounts just basically via follow, like, post, which HeyReach talks about through different templates that they offer. I basically want to follow them, show that we're engaging, like a post, send a connection request, which doesn't have any text or anything like that, because it's been known apparently that you get a little bit better odds if you just send a blank request. So your experience may differ. Always just experiment, right? And then from there, we're trying to see if we can start a conversation. And so ultimately, this is what you should do, or what I recommend is give it a shout, give it a try. Ocean.io is a great linchpin here tool in order to just, start from a short list and expand out. And then also, I would definitely play with the Clay workbooks featured, because as you can see here, it's very neatly organized in all the different tables that I have in here. And I can even continue on at scale, fourth and fifth way, et cetera, just to make sure their outreach is going. And then as well, I haven't even touched the email aspect, which I'll be building too. But to keep this video short and sweet, I just want to demonstrate that and to know the power and leverage of these integrations. So appreciate you watching, and happy clay making.